Welcome to Chapter 3 in our textbook, titled Understanding Nutritional Standards and Guidelines. After completing this chapter, you will be able to define recommended dietary allowance, adequate intake, tolerable upper intake level, and estimated energy requirement. You'll be able to determine how many carbohydrates, proteins, and fats are needed for a healthy diet, as well as an estimated daily calorie need and recommended daily fluid and sodium intake. You will get a further understanding of the importance of achieving calorie balance. We will discuss the nutrition facts labels and the ingredient lists on food packages and how they are used in our industry. Lastly, we will talk about identifying major allergens on an ingredient list. Maintaining a literal textbook definition of a healthy diet can be pretty challenging for most people. To have a healthy diet, your food choices will be nutrient dense from all 5 food groups, will contain all the essential vitamins and minerals, plus enough fiber, fluid, and phytochemicals. It will be balanced in calories and you'll enjoy it. Thinking back to Chapter 1 and the chart of factors that influence our food choices, you can easily see why it is difficult for people to have what is considered a healthy diet. For me, I have followed a gluten-free, low-carb diet for the last 3 years due to a chronic health condition. So yes, I'm a pastry chef that cannot eat many things that fall into the baking category. The food choices are cut down, but it's not an impossible lifestyle. What makes it a challenge is that it's honestly just not always very enjoyable. Making a meal for myself usually means making a different meal or variation of the meal I've made for my family. It's very easy to get into the habit of not making anything for myself and just grabbing whatever that's gluten-free and low carb. I think having uh, a nutrient dense balanced diet can just be plain difficult. But this is really where growth and knowledge in the food service industry comes in. The dietary reference intakes are recommended daily nutrient and intake amounts for healthy people of a particular age range and gender based on current scientific evidence. These are updated as new research indicates nutrient needs to be adjusted for optimal health. These play a part in determining the recommended daily allowance, planning nutritional programs, and setting government policy. The DRI addresses the most important nutrient, which is water. The body is almost 2/3 water by weight and critical for chemical reactions of the body to take place. It's also needed to cool the body. This chart shows DRIs organized by gender and age. A food service operation can help a customer achieve adequate nutrition by using DRIs as a reference. The DRIs can also be used as guidelines when helping staff understand nutritional information. The Dietary Guidelines for Americans 2010 is a document that provides information and advice on food choices, healthy weight, and disease prevention for people 2 years and above. It is mandated by legislation and produced every 5 years by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The 2010 report acknowledges that Americans make their own food choices and physical activity choices and states that people cannot change their diets unless they have the opportunity to purchase nutritious food. Because of the strength of evidence that obesity is harmful to human health, government officials are making efforts to encourage healthy eating. As we have already touched on, the food service industry has started to offer healthier options and the opportunity to purchase reduced portion sizes. Some restaurants participate in the Healthy Dining program, which helps customers find restaurants that have more nutritious food on their menus, as well as the Kids Live Well program, which provides nutrient-rich menu options. There are two main concepts in the 2010 dietary guidelines that we in the industry should be familiar with. Maintain calorie balance over time to achieve and sustain a healthy weight and focus on consuming nutrient-dense foods and beverages. The first key recommendation is balancing calories to manage weight. Balancing our calories with our daily activity level is important to maintain proper body weight. Having a caloric intake that is more than what your body needs will lead to obesity and vice versa. It is important to adjust calorie intake and physical activity levels through each stage of life: childhood, adolescence, adulthood, pregnancy, and older age. Of course, it's not as easy as just counting calories. The type of foods you eat make a difference. Sodium, saturated fatty acids, cholesterol, solid fats, and added sugars, refined grains, and alcohols have a limit to what you should consume on a daily basis. Foods that provide more potassium, dietary fiber, calcium, and vitamin D should be included as part of a regular eating pattern. When selecting an eating pattern, you want to meet your nutrient needs over time at an appropriate calorie level. You want to account for all foods and beverages and decide if they fit within a total healthy pattern. It's also important to follow food safety recommendations with preparing and eating foods to reduce foodborne illness risk. The last of the key recommendation is for specific population groups: women capable of becoming pregnant, women who are pregnant or breastfeeding, and individuals 50 years and older. Women capable of becoming pregnant should be choosing foods that are iron-rich and enhancers of iron absorption, such as vitamin C-rich foods. Folic acid is an important consumption recommendation. Women that are pregnant or breastfeeding should consume 8 to 12 ounces of seafood per week, limit white tuna to 6 ounces per week, and eliminate tallfish, shark, swordfish, and king mackerel due to the high mercury content. And they should also take an iron supplement as recommended by their healthcare provider. Individuals that are 50 years or older should consume foods or a dietary supplement with B12. To help encourage the public to make changes in their dietary intake, the government selected the following messages. Balancing calories. Enjoy your food but eat less and avoid oversized portions. Foods to increase. Make half your plate fruits and vegetables. Switch to fat-free or low-fat milk. Foods to reduce. Compare sodium in foods like soup, bread, and frozen meals, and choose the foods with lower numbers. Drink water instead of sugary drinks. Most Americans do not realize how many calories they need or how often they exceed their recommended calorie intake. The following chart shows the recommended calorie levels for children and adults at different activity levels. In 2011, the USDA introduced a new food guide icon called My Plate to help consumers make better food choices. The website for this is choosemyplate.gov, and I encourage you to go look it up. You can get a personalized food plan, there are recipes, and just a lot of information in general. My Plate splits food up into 5 groups: grains, protein, vegetables, fruit, and dairy. The information included in My Plate is meant to help create a healthy plate of food at every meal. Often, food service establishments and packaged food provide half or more daily calorie allotments and portion sizes than the equivalents used in My Plate. Generally, people eat more food than they need if it is served to them. Restaurants can help by providing several portion sizes of a given menu item, providing an easy way for a customer to take the food home, and providing an easy way for customers to split entrees. The food label is nearly universal on packaged food and needs to be understood by those in food service to determine the contents of the food they will order, prepare, or serve. The food label takes the guesswork out of buying packaged or canned food and allows us to compare by their nutritional value. The Nutrition Labeling and Education Act of 1990 provided the FDA with the authority to require nutrition labeling of most food that is regulated by the agency. It specifies which food requires labels, details what must be included on the label, and describes the companies and food products that are exempt from providing complete nutrition information. It also requires that all health and nutrient claims be consistent with agency regulations. Some foods that are exempt are bulk, as long as it's not for resale in that form, medical food used to meet special patient needs, plain coffee and tea, and some spices and other food items that contain no significant amounts of nutrients. The U.S. Food Safety and Inspection Service adopted a rule called nutrition labeling of single ingredient products and ground or chopped meat and poultry products. This went into effect on January 1st of 2012. This rule requires retailers to provide nutrition information for the major cuts of meat and poultry. The information can be on the label or point of purchase. If a nutrition information is provided for the non-major cuts or single ingredient raw meat and poultry products, it has to comply with requirements for the major cuts. Nutrition information is also required for ground meat and poultry products and must be on the packaging unless it's exempt. The nutrition facts label, which is part of the food label, contains nutrition information required by the FDA. You can usually find it on the back or side of a package. It is important to know how to read the nutrition facts label to help people avoid food allergens, plan special diets, cut back on calories, total fat, cholesterol, and sodium. Each nutrient on the nutrition facts label shows a percentage of the daily values. The percentages are based on a 2,000 calorie diet to which a single serving of the food item contributes. The FDA requires nutrition facts labels to have nutrients that address current health conditions. The order that the nutrients appear reflect the current priority of dietary recommendations. The mandatory components include the size and servings per container, total calories and calories from fat, total fat and saturated fat, trans fat, cholesterol, sodium, total carbohydrates, dietary fiber and sugars, protein, vitamin A, C, calcium, and iron. The nutrition facts label for food items for children under 2 years must not list information about saturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, monounsaturated fat, cholesterol, calories from fat, or calories from saturated fat. During the first 2 years, fat is crucial to ensure adequate growth and development, and the concern is that parents will incorrectly assume infants and young children must restrict their fat intake. When a food product has more than one ingredient, all ingredients must be labeled in order by weight, with the greatest amount first. Food additives such as color and MSG must be listed on the label. With juice, the total percentage of juice in the beverage that claim to be juice must be labeled, and it must also state if the main juice is only present in small amounts. The Food Allergen Labeling and Consumer Protection Act requires food labels to disclose whether a food contains one or more of the 8 major allergens, which are milk, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, fish, shellfish, soy, and wheat. This is required for domestically and imported packaged foods and subject to regulations and extend to retail and food service. Here we have an example of an ingredient list. The milk allergen is highlighted. Prior to the Nutrition Labeling and Education Act, food manufacturers didn't have restrictions on using terms. This act came about in 1990, and I actually remember this. People were jumping on the light and low fat train. It was easy for consumers to be misled, and the term light could mean the color of the food and not necessarily that it was low in calories. After this act was put into place, labeling terms had a specific definition that manufacturers had to follow. The FDA has put into place several requirements in order for food to be labeled healthy. The food item must be low in fat and saturated fat, have limited amounts of cholesterol and sodium. Single item food must have at least 10% of vitamin A, C, iron, calcium, protein, and fiber. Meal type products must provide 10% of 2 or 3 of these nutrients, meet the other criteria, and not exceed 480 milligrams of sodium per serving. Food labeled USDA organic must be at least 95% organic and meet USDA organic standards, including using renewable resources and the conservation of soil and water while growing food without using conventional pesticides, fertilizers from synthetic ingredients, sewage, bioengineering, or ionizing radiation. Animals must not have been given antibiotics or growth hormones. It is okay to make a claim between a food or nutrient and the risk of a health-related condition if it references the third party, for example, the National Cancer Institute, if it uses symbols and descriptions. It cannot state the degree of risk reduction, and it can only use the words may or might. Using a food label in food service will depend on the amount of packaged food that is used. When packaged food is used, labels can be used to determine the serving size and number of servings in a container, compare nutrients and select nutritious foods, find allergens and include them on the menu, and inform servers. And review deliveries to make sure what was received matches what was ordered. Thank you for listening to the Chapter 3 lecture. Please review the summary slides 18 through 31. After reading Chapter 3, please complete the Chapter 3 quiz, and have a great week.